It's 7:07. I'm Daedalus Howell. We have Christopher Kerosky with us. He's an attorney locally, and his specialty, at least of late, has been immigration. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Immigration is a huge topic, and it's a huge hot button issue right now, especially with the election happening and Donald Trump happening,
Yeah.
and all the sort of associations that have been brought to the table in terms of what immigration means these days. Who is immigrating right now?
Well, that really hasn't changed that much over the years, there's a lot of myths around immigration, and I think one of them has to do with, what the borders are like and how many people come through. One of the myths is that our borders are very porous.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, over the last 15 years, kind of beginning with 9/11, but some other efforts to strengthen the borders under the Bush administrations and the Obama administration. Now the border with Mexico is very, very tight. Virtually everybody tries to come in, gets caught. If they get caught, they get an order of deportation, which then prevents them from usually getting a green card in the future.
So this is illegal immigration.
Correct.
Right.
So what I'm saying is there's a myth that there's this constant flow of illegal immigration here, and
Right.
it's a myth.
When in
It's
fact
not true.
it's a trickle.
Right. In
Yeah.
fact, there's a net outflow the last 4 or 5 years to Mexico.
Right.
So what you do have is you have a lot of people going through the legal channels to immigrate here. They are very long paths. So a lot of people ask, why don't all these undocumented immigrants, primarily from Mexico, why don't they do it the legal way? Well, the way you can sponsor somebody, for example, a child, it takes 20 years if you're from Mexico. 21 years is the wait.
Really?
If you are the sibling, there is a petition you can file for your sibling. If you're a U.S. citizen, you want to sponsor your U.S. citizen child from Mexico, it's 18 years. So
why the time, though? I mean, is that just the way it's working, this sort of Kafka-esque fashion, or is that legislation that's led to that?
It's not the processing time. There's a quota for every country, and the quota for Mexico is such that with the great demand and the great numbers of people that have applied before today, that if somebody applies today to sponsor their adult child, and if they're a U.S. citizen and they want to sponsor their adult child, that child will wait 21, 22 years for their green card. They can expect to get it about 19, 30, 38, or 39, if the delays don't go up as they have over the years. So anyway, the point is the system's totally broken, especially when it comes to Mexican immigration. We obviously have a huge need for labor here, Mexican labor, and last year there were 10,000 for the entire country labor visas, green cards, given to undocumented, or I should say unskilled labor. And as we know, there are millions and millions of unskilled laborers working here. So that shows you that the two primary ways that you immigrate to the United States, either through work or through family, are totally dysfunctional. And that's why we have this problem.
Right.
When President Obama says that the system is broken, he's not exaggerating. It is broken.
It isn't just politics.
So there are a lot of myths around immigration. One of them, another one is that our immigration levels have gone up. That's not true. We had much higher immigration levels in the earlier part of last century and through much of last century. So there's many myths about it that I think add to the confusion. And obviously, certain political forces in this country, primarily the Trump campaign, have been exploiting these myths and basically blaming immigrants for a lot of our own problems in our society, which are just unfounded.
Right. Where do you come in? Where's the inflection point where somebody needs legal help and the services you provide and others like you?
Well, it's a difficult system, so there certainly are a lot of people we just cannot help under the existing laws. But what we do is we do a range of services for working within the existing system. So there still are family petitions available.
Right.
Certainly, if you marry a U.S. citizen, those waiting periods don't apply. There are perhaps shorter waiting periods if you marry a lawful permanent resident. So those are two areas where there's certainly ongoing work to be done to reunite families. We do a lot of that. We also help victims of domestic violence and victims of other crimes. They're entitled to a visa called a U visa. The idea there is our Congress said we want people to come forward and report crimes if they've been a victim of a crime so that we can catch the perpetrator and have a record of these criminal actions. So we created this visa which allows people to come forward without fear that they're going to be deported if they report a crime to the police.
Let's pick up on that in a second here. We're with Christopher Kerosky. I'm Daedalus Howell. This is 707. We'll be right back.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover.
My mom's from Bogota, Colombia, from Latin America. My dad's from Isola d'Elba, Italy. As a child of immigrants, there have definitely been struggles that I've had to overcome.
I met Giovanni when we were in 5th grade. We had a class together, Mr. Otto's class, I think it was.
I've known Diego since I was about 9 years old. We went to elementary school together, went to middle school together.
And then high school in Sonoma State. We were on the same soccer teams.
We listened to a lot of the same music, so lots of shared experiences.
Got a long ways to go.
It's been since 5th grade, since we were 9. It's 25 now? Wow. So.
Yeah. You know what? I lied. This is where it ends.
Get out of here.
I think the major chasm between my experience growing up as a child of immigrants and Diego's is just the comfort of being a citizen right off the bat.
The biggest differences from our families were that although Gio's families were immigrants, they have legal status.
I just happened to be born here. He didn't.
This is the culture I've grown up in, I was raised in. This is the life I know, but I'm not American. I can't be. I wasn't born here. My family brought me over to the US when I was a little over a year old. When I really finally understood everything was in high school. I realized that I wouldn't be able to get a license, I wouldn't be able to get a job, and really see myself going too far with my education because I couldn't get any financial aid. It just made me think, why? Why even bother? Why try?
What if I'm far from home? Oh, brother, I will hear you call. What if I lose it all?
When my DACA was approved, it just completely turned my world upside down for the better. I was not going to be deported. It allowed me to get a job.
So she's right now doesn't have any status, completely without Social Security number, driver's
Working at the law firm has been a great experience. You have to familiarize yourself with cases and people's backgrounds and stories. Did we get passport photos?
Let me see what he brought. Now that this relief is here with DACA, he's a whole nother person. He's just no holds bars. You want to go do something? Yeah, let's go. Let's travel across the country.
I went to Boston.
We drove across the country just to go see his brother's graduation, and there was absolutely no fear of anything, just so confident.
It was great to travel for the first time. Americans sometimes don't fully understand immigrants. They're just like me. I'm just a young guy working, trying to make a living, trying to grow up in a country that is my home, the only home I've known.
And we're back on 707. We're speaking with attorney Christopher Kerosky. Where we left off, we're talking about this particular visa that allows for various leniencies when it comes to bringing people into the country. Maybe you could back us up and tell us a little bit about
Well,
that.
it is an important visa for the immigrant community to know about. Persons who are victims of crimes do have the right to apply for a temporary visa. It's called a U visa. They have to prove that they cooperated with the police, they made a report, they helped if there was a prosecution of the perpetrator, And they are entitled to, as I said, a temporary visa that's valid for 3 years. It's called a U visa. And we have a program in our office where we work with the Consulate of Mexico, and they will cover the fees and costs.
But is the U visa sort of an on-ramp to citizenship, or is it just a way to be here for that 3 years?
Well, it does have a path to eventual citizenship. Yeah. So everything in this country, when we talk about paths to citizenship, the first step is permanent residence.
Right.
So you have to have permanent residence generally for 5 years before you can become a citizen. And there are other requirements for citizenship, such as English skills and knowledge of our history. But the preliminary step is permanent residence. So you can go for a U visa, and then after 3 years, if it's approved, you can convert that to permanent residence, and 5 years later, citizenship.
That's great. And you can be here legally during that time.
Exactly, with your family.
What got you into this kind of law? What was the attraction?
Well, I've always been interested in languages. I've studied a number of languages over the years, and
you're fluent in obviously English, in Spanish, and Polish as well.
Right, and I've studied Russian and French over the years. So
you're not fluent.
I've certainly lost my fluency in French, sadly, but I studied there, and I also had a lot of Russian clients when I practiced in San Francisco for about 20 years. So I was able to, and still am able to communicate in Russian, but not very well.
How interesting.
But we have a staff that includes Russian and Polish speakers, Japanese, Portuguese, a whole number of languages.
And this is all for dealing with the immigration issues, or?
Correct. Yeah, we do primarily immigration. Virtually all our work is for immigrants, and it relates to immigration cases. And then in 2008, I moved up to our beautiful county, love Sonoma County, and opened an office in Santa Rosa. And since then, it's been primarily Spanish speakers.
It's interesting. But is there a particular thing about immigration issues that is important to you?
Well, I think obviously the American story is an immigrant story. It's hard to think about America without thinking about our immigrant history. My grandparents were immigrants from Poland. That's how I got interested in Polish and Poland. But generally speaking, I think immigrants are a very wonderful type of clientele if you're a lawyer.
Right.
And particularly the Mexican community, I've found are wonderful clients to represent, extremely grateful for whatever work you do, usually modest and following directions, which is important as a lawyer. And they have a respect for lawyers that unfortunately in America is not very common with Americans.
Right.
So, for example, the Spanish language has special terms for lawyers, abogado, licenciado, that are kind of said with a respect that you certainly don't get in the English versions. So
doesn't that translate to shark?
Not exactly, no. So it's a totally different feel when you represent immigrants, and I've done it for 27 years, and I really love it.
What's a success story for you? If a client comes to you with a complaint or an issue and needs to stay here, wants to be here, how do you know it's worked? Do they become a citizen?
Well, usually the brass ring is the green card. So if you can get a green card for somebody, or get them a U visa or asylum, which will entitle them a green card down the way, then you've been successful. I've done a lot of asylum work over the years.
You should probably define that for us.
So political asylum is a term used when somebody has fear of returning to their home country, either because of their political views or because of their religion or race.
Dude, I have fear going back to Petaluma. I mean,
well, Mexico, for example, is a country where things have changed a lot in the last 20 years, and now there are various parts of Mexico where it's extremely dangerous. Our community has a lot of people from, for example, Michoacan. Michoacan went from a very tranquil place 20 years ago to now one where is ripe with extortion, kidnappings, violence. So we have a lot of asylum cases from Mexico, and particularly that part of Mexico. I started with Afghan refugees in 1980s. And late 80s, and then did a lot of Soviet Union cases and people from the former Soviet Union, and then most recently we've been doing a lot of cases from Mexico and Central America.
That's fascinating. We're talking with Christopher Kerosky. He's an immigration attorney here in Sonoma County. This is 707. We'll be right back.
hurt you the way the words do when they settle near your skin. Kept on the inside and no sunlight. Sometimes a shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you want to say.
I first started coming at Annalee my freshman year, and since the beginning I kind of felt that I was safe and I was around my friends and people who I knew.
In high school, I've been able to grow more into myself and become more comfortable around people. I'm not scared anymore. This is the place where I can be myself.
I originally participated in this project because I just love filming and editing, and I wanted to broaden my horizon.
I just wanted to join this project because I thought it would be like a great experience to have a video that could make a change in the society.
Being able to actually capture their response is pretty special because you get this kind of experience once in a lifetime.
You ready? Okay. So what age were you when you first came to the United States?
I didn't have a legal status when I first came here, and at the young age of 5 I knew I didn't have it because it was just always surrounding me.
When I first came here, it was turn off all the lights, stay quiet in the house, don't make a noise, and don't go outside. That was my childhood.
And it's frustrating because these little things we should be able to do. Like some years ago, people were talking about getting their licenses, and you're just kind of sitting there like, I know I'm not going to get it because there's nothing right now, that can permit me to get a license.
If there's any cops around, if there's any sort of violence and I'm caught up in it, I'm going to be deported.
Maria and Bismarck have gone through more than I can ever imagine.
Listening to all the experiences they went through, like Bismarck traveling like on the bus and stuff, and Maria like hiding in the trunk of a car.
I was starting to like cry about that because it's like it got to me what they were saying.
I had no idea about the whole DREAM Act and everything that surrounds that, so I think it was definitely, I didn't know anything about it, and I think a lot of people at our school are kind of in the dark on subjects like that.
What I want to say about Maria and Bismarck is that they are the only 2 undocumented students here at Annalee that have actually publicly come out as being undocumented.
I've known Maria and Bismarck through classes and stuff that I've had with them, and never thought of the people around me if they were citizens or not, especially at high school. You just don't think of that. Sit right here.
Maria is a senior, and she works after school and on the weekends. Last semester, her mother had like a mild stroke, and Maria had to go to work to support her family.
Been in school with her since I was very small. She was very quiet before, but now it's amazing to see how they actually want to impact their community and make a change.
Vamos a tener un paseo al... I haven't really ever thought of myself as a leader, but a lot of people have told me that, oh, you're a great leader. And it's a good thing because when you can influence other people, it's a good feeling to get a lot of people together for the same reason.
Bismarck's story is like he's like helped a lot of people as well, like what experiences he's gone through and overcome. He's like helping others now, like help them get through it.
I like helping students to find hope and to become better educated and to find a way to keep going.
Ever since I was little, everyone's always been told, you can't do this, you can't do that, and I want to prove them wrong. I started to take on hurdles because every single person was like, you're too short to jump that, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna try it and see what happens. I saw hurdles as just an obstacle, and I made the correlation that a hurdle is each different problem in my life. So I was like, I'm just gonna jump each hurdle and overcome each issue, and I'm gonna win.
I didn't think about it before at all, and now like looking, I think, wow, okay, they're a huge part in our community, they're volunteering everywhere, they're helping. It's very it's exciting and joyful to see that even though they weren't born here, they're not citizens of here, they still want to help out the community. They still want to be involved and be here as much as they can.
Welcome back to 707. I'm Daedalus Howell. We have Christopher Kerosky with us. We're talking about the issues facing the immigrant community and the legal issues therein. We have an attorney. He's going to help me get back into Petaluma safely. We're talking about asylum, which is a fascinating subject, right? And the fact that you have worked through, the end of the Cold War, through various wars, and now issues with cartels and stuff like that in Mexico. What's next? Can you see on the horizon the next immigrant population that might need asylum here?
Well, of course, there's the issue of the Syrian refugees. We have a lot of, we have some Syrian refugees in this country, about 10,000 right now that are being allowed in on an asylee status. That pales in light of what Europe has taken. But what we do have more prevalent in our country and specifically in our county is the Mexican refugee problem. And it's huge. It's a little bit under the radar, but we have...
But that's a really cool way to identify it, because you hear Mexican immigrants or illegal immigrants or undocumented, but you never hear refugee. That's a really important distinction, I think.
I had a client in my office 2 days ago who was a policeman from a part of Mexico, and he brought me in color enlarged pictures of his colleagues, a couple of the colleagues that he'd worked for that had been targeted by the cartels, and their heads were severed with a note below it saying, essentially in Spanish, this could happen to you.
Right.
This is the kind of thing that goes on all the time, and we see these cases. This is a real case that I had just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So it's frightening, the things that are going on down there, and people are fleeing for their lives. And fortunately, the Obama administration has been allowing people to have a hearing. They don't just get let in. They're required to have a hearing in immigration court, which is essentially deportation court.
Right.
But they are allowed usually to present their case and try to show that they have a well-founded fear of returning home because of who they are or what they believe in.
Is it because there's the perception that that kind of phenomena, like the severed heads you described, is perceived as a criminal phenomena rather than a political one?
You mean, is that why it's so difficult?
Yeah.
Well, the asylum law is very limited. You have to show that the persecution threat or the harm that you would suffer is due to race, religion, nationality, political group, or social group. So it has to fit into one of 5 categories. And sometimes that's difficult. You can have like a lot of random violence. You can have wars in the street, essentially, civil war in the street, but if it's not related to one of those categories, you're technically not eligible for asylum. So yeah, that is one of the limitations that we deal with in the law, to try to deal with the real life problems of these people whose lives are being threatened, and trying to find a way to allow them to stay here.
Now, I know you work with the Sonoma County Human Rights Commission. Do you think asylum is a human right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you and our United Nations has a treaty that we have signed, the United Nations Convention on Refugees, which says that we have a duty to basically admit and provide asylum for someone if they in fact do have a fear for their life based on one of these grounds. And so, of course, it's a human right that we have to recognize, and that's why it's a real issue for us in the coming years. How do we deal with this human rights problem at our southern border?
Right. One of the things you've been doing lately is creating videos about individuals facing various immigration issues, but identified sort of under the banner of the DREAM Act. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about...
Well, one of the most exciting things in my career as a lawyer, as an immigration lawyer, has come about the last 4 years. 2012, President Obama, in sort of a beautiful humanitarian and political gesture, before the election in 2012, promulgated a law. It was an executive order that said young people who came here before their 16th birthday, essentially brought by their parents, if they've obeyed the law, they can get a reprieve from deportation. And what that means is they get a work permit, but it opens up their life in so many ways that we can't imagine. 1 million young people have obtained this status, more or less, approximately 1 million.
That's great.
And it's growing all the time because new people turn 15, they can apply. And the beauty of this is that you have young lives, people have been here essentially their whole life, opened up to the right to work, the right to travel, essentially the right to go to school, pursue a career. And what we try to do is the Human Rights Commission has created this project in which I'm the director, and it's called the North Bay Dreamers Film Project. It's northbaydreamers.org if you want to check it out. All the films are on there. And our local PBS station, KRCB, has been a wonderful partner for this. We have a brilliant PBS filmmaker named Ryan Miller with 25 years experience making PBS documentaries. So there's 6 of them we've done so far. They've just been shared with the entire PBS network across the country.
Congratulations.
They've been shown hundreds of times on KRCB, our local
Well, we'll get them on here
PBS,
too.
and we will show them here. Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
We would love to have them here.
Christopher Kerosky, thank you for joining us. I really want you to come back. Can we come have you back?
Absolutely.
Great.
Anytime.
Okay. Well, we'll
Thanks,
see you next time
Daedalus.
then. Yeah. Cheers.